Typically, a portrait photo is taken with the lens. It could be anything from 35 all the way up to 200 and anything between. But it is personal preference. There is no right or wrong answer. Whatever you like, you do you. Now that being said, every lens does have its own style, and even the same image will look different taken with every lens. Today, I'm gonna show you the same photo taken with each one of these different lenses, a bunch of different focal lengths, and you can make the decision as to which one you like. A common misconception when you get a fancy new lens, or even if you're just starting out, let's say you get something like the 24mm G Master, has an aperture available of f1.4, and you just are inclined to shoot everything at f1.4. You blur out that background, get your separation, get your bokeh, and Bob's your uncle, you think that is what makes a good portrait. It is an option, but you can often run into problems in that you might just get the eye in focus or just the nose, and that might not make the best portrait. So there's definitely more benefit to using a slightly higher aperture so you can get more in focus, maybe something like an f4. And I know what you're thinking, I've got this nice lens that you can go down to f1.4, why am I gonna shoot at f4 instead? I'm not gonna get a lot of background blur and the image just isn't gonna be that good. Well, that's actually what I wanna show you today. You can create a lot of background separation with higher focal lengths. So something like 70-200 at f4 is gonna create an amazing portrait, something you might not have even considered before. So there is different ways to go about taking a portrait, thinking outside the box, not using the shallowest depth of field, and maybe going f4 with any of these lenses. Tom, who is being used as my model, stayed put, and I moved back to make sure that I had exactly the same framing, exactly the same composition with each of these lenses. Obviously, if I'm using the 70-200, it's gonna be a lot more zoomed in, so I had to go back to get the same style of shot. As I said, all f4, and these are straight JPEGs from the camera. So let's take a look. First up, we have the 24mm f1.4 G Master at f4. Typically not a lens you'd use to shoot a portrait. It's a bit too wide and it's not the most flattering in the world. This doesn't look too bad, but I figured I'd throw it in. Good starting point. And now the Tamron 35mm f2.8, which is a budget lens. Definitely a little bit more background separation now, still fairly wide, quite like this focal length. Tom is popping a little bit more out of the background than before. And now the 55 f1.8 Zeiss. Really sharp lens, and I like that Tom's popping in the foreground here a little bit more than before. I also like the compression of the 55. You can see the background, it's a little bit closer than the 35 was. So I'm quite liking this image. And now the 85, a very popular portrait lens. The background is a lot more blurred than at 55. So, good looking image. I don't know if I like the separation. I think I prefer it from the 55. And now the 70-200 f4 at 100mm. So, a lot of blur in the background there. Tom is definitely the focus of this image. The background is starting to disappear. In the far background there, you can see there's a lot more compression. Things look a little bit closer now than they did before. And now the 70-200 at 135. I opted for this because 135 is a popular focal length because of the 135 f1.8. Huge amount of background blur, and again, things look even closer now because of the compression there. The compression also helping with the bokeh. And finally, the 70-200 f4 at 200. Huge amount of background separation. You really can't tell, other than knowing that the blue bins there, you really can't tell what's going on in the background whatsoever. Very nice transition from the foreground to the background, but it just becomes nothing. So that was all the images individually. Now let's just whack them all on the screen and take a look at them comparatively. Now I don't know about you, but I quite like the look of the 55. To me, that's the one that stands out the most. Mostly because it has the perfect amount of background separation so that Tom is still the main subject. We can still see him clearly. The background's a little bit blurred, but it's quite interesting still, so you don't really want to blur it too much, so we can still see what's going on. With some of the higher ones, like 85 and above, you start to blur the background a bit too much and you can't really see what's going on. Now there's going to be a time and a place where you want to blur out even more, and you might want to go all the way to 200. Let's say your background's really ugly, doesn't look good. It's a big dump. Don't know why you're taking portraits at a dump, but let's say you were and you want to blur out the background. Then use the 200. Now I'm interested to know which is your choice, which is your favorite lens when it comes to shooting portraits. Out of all the ones that I showed today, which one do you like most and why? So pop a comment down below, justify your reasoning. Don't just put down, I like the 55. but I like the 55 and why. Interested? So pop that down below. And remember, as I said, there is no correct right or wrong lens to shoot portraits with. It's entirely personal preference. So hopefully this video was of some use to you. Maybe you're looking at buying one of these specifically for portraits, and I gave you the same image shot with each one, and now you know. Either way, if you did like this video, consider clicking that subscribe button down below. Lots of videos that I've done before, lots of videos coming. If you're a Sony user, you probably won't regret it. So there we go. All right, don't really know what else I've got to say now. Got nothing else in the notes there. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. See you later.